Like the city of Paterson, jazz also changed after the 1960s. More and more jazz musicians were studying informal jazz studies programs. Such a program is offered at William Paterson College, only a few blocks away from downtown Paterson. Here, Rufus Reed, the musical director, works with young musicians.
The WPC Jazz program goes back to about 1965. That is, if you want to call what we did at that time a jazz program. We just started out with a big band, and there weren't very many of those in colleges. We called it a jazz ensemble, not a stage band. That was what was pretty common. And during those first years, we immediately started to bring in some wonderful soloists to play with the band. People like Jimmy Hall, Donald Byrd. I almost shake my head when I think what we paid those people back in those days. I'd like to be able to drop a check and pay them a little more right now. But we had some good times in those days, and the program actually flowered because a lot of students were interested in jazz. They almost forced us to have a more bona fide program, when that was a degree. That actually happened in 1973. The year before that, we brought Thad Jones on the faculty, and he was the first full-time jazz instructor. And then Rufus Reed came on the scene. Rufus was a great educator, great performer, and once again, a year after Rufus arrived on the scene, we came up with a Bachelor of Music program, which was really a lot more realistic for what we were doing. And with Rufus, just about that time, things really started to cook.
William Paterson College conferred honorary doctorate degrees on Thad Jones and Benny Golson, two of the great jazz musicians who taught in the college's jazz studies program.
This is a great time for a young jazz musician to be on the scene, too. There's a lot more happening in jazz, and there's a lot more respect nationwide. If you're a young jazz musician today, you have a very good chance, if you're 20 years old, of coming out and getting a record contract, and with a very good label. There's actually a wealth of jazz talent living in Paterson. People wouldn't ordinarily realize it, but since it's only 14 miles from New York, the jazz mecca of the world, it's not too surprising. New York's gotten so expensive that actually very few musicians can live in Manhattan, or less than you'd think. They might live in Brooklyn. A lot live in Paterson, though. There's people like Kenny Bowles from the Illinois Jacquette Big Band, Adam Brenner, who I've seen with Lionel Hampton and with Mel Torme and so on, and Frank Jolliffe and Willie Dalton, and I could mention more.
Joe Mooney died in 1975. His musical legacy lives on in the music he wrote and performed. For the 200th anniversary of the city of Paterson in 1993, there was a revival of the Joe Mooney Quartet, with two of its original members, Andy Fitzgerald and Father Gate Friga, joined by Bucky Fitzgerald, Gene Favatella, and Jerry Bruno. Everywhere I go, people know the part I'm playing. Local 248 of the American Federation of Musicians presents jazz concerts in the parks. The Paterson Museum at the old Rogers Locomotive Factory features young jazz musicians. The old clubs, dance halls, and theaters are gone, but jazz remains alive and well in Paterson.
We had some great times here.
I never had such fun in my life.